Hello, I hope this video finds you well. Today we are going to make this basic window using tkinter in Python, and in this video we are going to do it not using a class structure. If you're interested in doing this using a class structure, which is actually better off, I have another video to do that. But again, if you're a beginning programmer, I do recommend avoiding class structures initially, just to kind of understand how everything works. Alright, so this has three label widgets. It has some text fields you can put stuff in, and a button you can click that does nothing. So let's dive in. Now, if we want to run this, we want to use what's called the tkinter module. So I'm going to have to import tkinter, and I'm going to import it as tk. Autocomplete tkinter. Now, a lot of people don't do this because you can shortcut it, but I always like saying import tkinter as tk because then it reinforces what functions you're pulling from this module. So a module is essentially a collection of functions that you can access and use. And this module has all the functions that I need for building GUIs. It has our root window, which is your window with your maximize, minimize buttons. It has any type of widget that you might put on a window. When I talk about widgets, I mean buttons, text fields, labels, those types of things. To set up any GUI program, we could do the following. We start off by making some sort of root window, and this is your main window that essentially has your maximize, minimize button. So let me run this again and show you this window here that has the bar on the top, the close, the maximize, the minimize, the maximize. That is a main root window that all of these programs have to start with. It doesn't have to be called root. You'll find some places call it master. I call it root, and I say root equals tk dot capital T small k. And so what's happening here is I'm going into the tkinter module and I'm running this tk method, and this does all the work to build that root window. I don't know how it does it. I don't actually care. It builds it and then it passes a reference to there. So if I want to talk about that root window, I now use that variable name. Little side note, capitalized methods are constructors. Those are special methods that go and build something for us. It's an important word if you continue on to do object-oriented programming. So I'm going to hit enter a whole bunch of times, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to say root.main_loop. And what this does is this takes the root window I've made and it runs a main loop, which is essentially an infinite loop that sits there and waits to see if you do anything. Now, I always like to do this for students. So I always print start, and then I print end. And if I save this now and come back here and give it a run, you can see I've done it right here. I see how I'm running the vid version. See how it's printed out start, but it hasn't printed end. That's because it's sitting in this main loop waiting for you to do something. Now I can't do anything yet, because right now it's just this window. But notice I can simply close it and then it prints end. Now again, we're not using a class structure here, and if I'm working with students, it's really important that we use this setup initially because it helps us bypass some rules. I always encourage students to set it up by putting your data at the top, followed by your functions, followed by your GUI setup. We are not going to write any functions in this. We're not going to write any data, but setting it up in this order initially is really helpful. We're going to do everything in our GUI setup here. Now, sometimes we can add the widgets right onto the root window, but I actually like to make a frame and put a frame on, then add the widgets to the frame, because think of it as like when you're painting. The root is like your wood frame, and then you can put some sort of canvas on top of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a frame variable, and I'm going to say tk.frame. Again, we know that this frame function is coming from the tkinter module because I'm accessing it. And the first parameter I'm going to send this is, who am I going to stick this onto? And I'm going to stick this onto the root. And so now I come down here and I say frame.pack. And what this does is it takes that frame and it packs it onto the root window. Whenever we create a widget, we have two steps. Step one is we create the widget. I sometimes call it the object. And step two is we add it to the window. So we basically have to put it on the screen. Now I have said to students before, I think of it as step 3 sometimes. Sometimes there's actually step 1. Step 2 would be configure. So doing any specific configuration. So let's think of it like that. Step 1 is we create it. Step 2 is configure. We're not going to do any configuring right now. And step 3 is we add it to our window. So if I save this and I run this, you can't see it because it's off screen. Let me see if I drag this over here. There it is. You get this really, really small window that is, just literally a line. And the reason why it does that is because before, when it was just the root window, I've now put a frame on there. And when I pack that frame on, it makes some assumptions. It says, oh, okay, you have no content, so you can be infinitely small, and then that just shrinks right down. But you notice I still have my TK window there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all my widgets to my frame. And then I add all my widgets to my frame, and then I add that frame to the root window. So think of it like getting a piece of construction paper and then cutting out some shapes and gluing it on the construction paper, and then taking that construction paper and putting it inside, putting it on a board. So let's take a look at what we have here. So we will see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different, 7 widgets, and these 3 are what are called label widgets. These are what are called text widgets, and that's a button widget. And the first thing I want to do is I want to create the widget, and then I want to place it on the frame. And I'm going to use what's called a grid layout to do that. Grid layout's a really flexible layout with tkinter that allows you to place objects with a relative degree of flexibility, but you have to know what's called the row and the column position. And when a student will do this, I'll make them do a drawing, and then I make them draw these red lines on there that kind of break it up. And all I'm doing is drawing a line between every widget horizontally and a line between every widget vertically. And you'll notice that it actually cuts some of them, and that's okay. But I have to, again, draw it through everyone vertically and everyone horizontally. And that allows me to number my grid. And I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I've done this, and I can't stress this enough. If you're just learning this, taking a moment to do this in advance is really, really important because it helps you understand the layout and how to do this properly. As you get better, you can do this in your head, but I'll tell you when I'm working on projects that are more advanced, I have to do this myself. So we think about it as rows and columns. So we see this has 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it has 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. And we always start our numbering from 0 in the positive direction, 0 in the positive. So this is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 0, 3, 1, 3, 2. Now, just a point. It doesn't matter. You can number these however you want, as long as they're sequential. It actually will figure it out. And sometimes students will say like 0, 0, 100, 0, 200, 0, 300, 0. But I recommend just sticking with this convention because it's going to make a lot of things later on easy. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the widget, and then when we place it using the grid, we have to give it a row and a column. So let's do this one here. Let's come back to here, and we're going to create my widget. So I'm going to call this widget lab1 for label 1, and I'm going to say tk.label. And the first parameter is where I'm going to place it. I'm actually going to place this on the frame, not the root. And now I can put some named parameters. Named parameters are parameters with names that the order doesn't matter. So I'm going to say text equal, and we're going to say enter first name. And I'm going to just do that for now. So once I've now created this label widget, and it's called lab1, now I'm going to add it. So before I add it before we pack it, I'm going to say frame.add. Sorry, that's not right at all. I'm getting my languages mixed up. lab1.grid. So I'm going to grid this, and because I've associated with the frame, I'm gridding on there. Well, what did we say? We said that this is row 0, column 0. So let's save this now, and let's see what happens. So if I come back here and I run this, there it is. Enter first name. Row 0, column 0. And I'm going to do that for the 3 widgets. So I'm going to do these 3. So we have enter first name, enter last name, enter access code. Okay, so let's come back here. We have, oh, pardon me. So we're going to say lab1 is that. We're going to say lab2 is tk.label. We're going to put it on the frame. Text is going to equal enter last name. I'm going to put a colon at the end. I'm going to say lab3 equals tk.label. Frame. Text is equal to enter access code. There we go. Now be careful, some students will run this now and they won't get them, and that's because we've created the objects but we haven't placed them on the grid or placed them on our frame in this case. So I'm going to say lab2.grid, and we can see this, it's row 1, column 0, row 2, column 0. So I can say grid, row equals 1, column equals 0, lab3.grid, row equals 2, column equals 0. We'll save this. We'll give this a run, and there it is. Okay, so now let's do the text boxes. So the text boxes, there they are. We're not going to worry the fact that you might notice they spread across 2 columns. We're not going to deal with that quite yet. We're just going to get them on there. So I come back to here, I do the same thing. So I'm going to say text1 is equal to tk.text because it's a text widget. I'm going to put it on the frame, and I'm going to pass it 2 name parameters right now. The first one is going to be width, which I'm going to set to, if I could spell it, I'm going to set to 30, and height is going to be equal to 1. This sets my width, how many characters across it is, and how many lines it is. And I'm going to take this and let's copy it and let's do it twice more, text1, text2, and we'll rename this. So that's text1, there's text2, there's text3. We're going to save this, and now I'm going to grid it, so I'm going to say text1.grid, and we can come back here just to say text1 is going to be row 0, column 1. So it's going to be row 0, column 1. And let's just copy this. And we'll go text2. Paste that. We'll go text3. And it's going to be, remember we're saying row 0, row 1, row 2. Row 0, row 1, row 2. So let's save that now. Let's come back into our window. Oh, we got to close our old one. Get rid of that. We'll run this again. There you go. Now you notice you can click, but you can't see them because we're going to add some other things. But we can click in there. Perfect. Now we're going to add the button. Okay. So I'm going to say btn equals tk.button, and again we're going to put it on the frame. And the button has a nice name parameter called text, and we're going to say login. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say btn.grid, and I'm going to grid it. And if we come back to our picture, we can see in row 3, column 1. So I'm going to say grid, row equals 3, column equals 1. I'll save that. Back in here and run this. There's our button. Okay, so let's kind of give these a little bit of, make these so you can actually see them without clicking on them. And it turns out there's some other name parameters I can use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say border width is equal to 2. I'm going to say the relief is equal to tk.groove. And we'll just leave that for now. So if I save that, and let's copy these. There's 2 O's in groove. There we go. We're going to copy that. We're going to go paste, paste, save it. Let's just show you, and I'll break that down a bit. Let's just see what the difference is. So you see how we get a little bit of that Windows there? Okay, let's break this down. So border width is just the border that you can set. And again, you can go online and find all sorts of name parameters that you can use that's going to impact the construction of these widgets. It's how you make them, the first stage to make them look nice. We can use a relief called the groove relief. Now you might say, well, what's this TK doing? Well, the relief name parameter actually takes a value, and I don't know what the actual value is. It's probably a numerical value, and the way we simplify this with coding is we can access a constant value, which is located in the tkinter. I know it's a constant because it's all capitals, so whatever that constant value is, I just access it this way. You'll see that quite a bit with tkinter. So now that we can see this, let's just come back here. I want these to go, I want this login over here. I want these to move across. We're going to do a little bit more playing around. And this is where the column and row span becomes really useful. I am only doing column span here, but the same idea applies to row span. What I can do here is I can actually say, okay, this is 1, 2 columns, because I want this login just to be on this column, but I want these to be across too. So what I can do is I can come in here And I can say, when I pack it, nope, I want the text, pardon me. I'm going to say column span equals to 2. So that's saying is I want you to place it in row 0, column 1, but I want you to take up 2 columns worth of space. And column span of 2, there it is, there it is. So if I save this now, oh, I have to close this up and run this again. There we go. So you see now login's a little over there. I can play around with a lot of different things. I like to use, another nice one you can do is you can use the sticky. I like to use the sticky name parameter equals, and I say add northeast, southwest. So what that says is it takes your button, and I want you to make sticky across everything. So if I save that now, let's kill that. Let's run this again. There you go. My button looks, you see, so my button's aligned there. Now, what I might want is, I might want these to be kind of, to be aligned or a little different. I can apply that sticky to this as well. Let's see what happens if I do that. So I say sticky equals northeast, southwest, and I save that, and I kill this, I run this. So all that does is it spreads out the widget so it takes the entire place. There's another widget you can use called anchor, or a name parameter, not a widget, pardon me, and that anchor will allow it to like kind of align it left or right and those types of things. I'm not going to get too kind of lost in that. All right. Now, you'll notice with my original one, and you can see it here, that there's quite a bit of space around the edges, and the background is this kind of purple. So we're going to do that right now. So remember how I put all of these widgets on my frame? I'm going to come up to where I constructed my frame, and I'm going to pass it 2 name parameters, well, more than 2. I'm going to pass one called pad x is 20, pad y, which is 20, and that deals with the padding on the left and right of 20 pixels. I'm going to set my background color. Now here's a bit of a pro tip. A lot of programmers, they'll just put red, blue, and the colors look horrible. Go online and find a color palette or color scheme creator and use hexadecimal colors. It just makes it look so much nicer. I'm going to use 4E41187. It just makes it look so much nicer than these harsh colors. And if you're working with someone who's not a programmer, making something look nice with colors takes you a long way. So notice now that back is purple, but all of these ones have backgrounds as well. So I'm going to set all of those backgrounds to purple as well. So we're going to take this background and we're going to come down here and we're going to say, okay, set the background to that. All right, set the background to this. All right, set the background to this. So if we save this, oh, we're going to do this one as well. Let's put our background here as well. Comma, background, comma, background, comma, background. We save this. So you see how we have the white there? We set the background of all of our widgets. Actually, I don't want the background of the text to be that. Let's get rid of that. So let's get rid of these texts. So let's get rid of you. Let's get rid of you. And let's get rid of you. You know, playing around a little bit is a nice way to do this. Just going to kind of run this here, X this out, give that a run. That looks a little nicer. So now let's set our, if we go in here, click, we can see we have some text. So let's set our foreground text. So I used a color scheme and I found this nice, I found this nice color here. If I have my text area, I'm going to set the foreground of my text to this. And again, these 2 colors I've picked specifically because I think they look nice together. Can't stress this enough. As a big, if you're just making a quick prototype, taking some time and setting your colors using hexadecimal values, which gives you a little bit more of a ability to play. So let's save. Let's save this. Let's give this a run, and I think we're going to wrap up after this because this is a pretty long video. There it is, and now I get this nice color in there. Again, login does nothing. Now, before I wrap up, I just want to say one last thing. I get this all the time. If you're programming Python, for whatever reason, it tkinter, managing buttons and button colors on Macs is a problem. There's a fix you can do, but don't get too caught up trying to get this to change color and all of these things. There's something funny with it. Anyways, I hope this helped. You can find all of this in my GitHub repository along with a lot of other things that I develop. Please don't hesitate to reach out, ask any questions, borrow any code. And with that, have a wonderful day. Take care.